Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council meeting. It's Thursday, March 28th. It's 7:09. We're going to begin the meeting. I want to thank everybody for coming. I know it's been kind of rainy and wet out there, so I really appreciate you guys showing up. This meeting will be recorded, and you could see it on our Facebook page under the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our newest beat officer, Officer Lal. Would you like to come up and give us your report?
Absolutely. Right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Officer Lal. I'll just kind of give a brief introduction about myself. I've been with the Richmond Police Department for 6 years now. Prior to working for the Richmond Police Department, I worked at Napa State Hospital, basically dealing with the criminally insane. I've been working this beat for about 3 months now, and I'm basically just here just to kind of hear you guys' concerns and issues within the beat, and then hope we find a solution to address that issue. So is there any kind of issues anyone wants to address or anything like that? Am I a little too far from it? Sorry about that. Do you have any issues that anyone has as far as this district goes? I know traffic usually like a big one that people complain about. Our traffic unit is getting full, so we got more traffic guys that can address those issues. So if you guys do have any issues in your neighborhood, we can definitely have them come out. Sorry, your hand raised?
Yeah, I was just thinking that we have summer coming with 4th of July and Juneteenth, and I know the Hilltop Fairmeade has a lot of firecrackers and fireworks. And our little neighborhood on the edge of San Pablo has a sign saying, this is not a firework area, don't do it. So I know they're not allowed, but it seems, is enforcement of that just really elusive?
Yeah, so when like 4th of July and like kind of the New Year's comes, we have like hundreds of calls for fireworks. Everyone's calling in, and we do have people that will come in overtime to have more officers on the street when we do have these big holidays and events to kind of address that issue. We do give citations if we do catch people lighting fireworks in the act. We'll definitely confiscate the fireworks and also issue them a fine. It's kind of hard to combat all the fireworks that goes on because, there's a lot. Then our shot spotter activation goes off, and that gets kind of priority because we don't know if it's a firework or if it's a gunshot. So cops are kind of running around trying to deal with the issue, but we try our best every year. So
should we just call the non-emergency line for that?
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So as I stated earlier, this neighborhood had the last homicide for 2023 and the first homicide for 2024. Can you tell us about all the other crime that's...
Yeah, so the first homicide that we had was here, and I'm actually part of the SWAT team, so we actually apprehended that suspect, the one that we had recently here in Lancaster. That's still kind of being investigated, so we're kind of working on that. As far as the motive on these homicides, I don't know the exact details, but we did get one suspect in custody.
So what are you seeing as far as crime?
Crime up in the hill, we do get car break-ins, usually at the Walmart parking lot. A lot of petty thefts at Walmart. But as far as like crimes that stick out here, it's actually not too bad. It's actually been relatively okay as far as when I'm working on swings. So we are kind of getting a reduction in crime up here, which is good.
Have you had any calls for coyotes?
Haven't yet. Yes, ma'am. That's my name first.
We have a vehicle, a motorhome that's been parked in our neighborhood for several days now. And calls have been made, but there's been no response.
Okay.
It's on Broome between Belfast and Birmingham.
Belfast and Birmingham.
Okay. And you guys contacted our partner enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. I'll get in contact with them just to kind of readdress that issue. I know with like RVs and stuff like that, it kind of gets difficult to tow it because we need the right tow to kind of move that large vehicle. But I'll definitely get in touch with park enforcement for you guys to make sure we address that issue.
And then another thing is, between Del Camino and Lancaster, in back of the storage and the little motel there, there's an encampment and it's really it's gotten out of hand.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And when I have called, I've been told that's kind of tricky. And the trickiest part of it is Richmond, part of it is San Pablo. But to me, that shouldn't matter. It should be problem should be solved between the two entities. They should take care of it. They should, not say, oh, that's not my job. That's his job.
No, I understand. I know some people in San Pablo, so I'll contact them to see what kind of, how they're kind of dealing with that issue. Because that section is San Pablo, but I can definitely reach out to some of the guys there to see if they can pick that up.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the hours that you're working? How many hours you're working?
Well, I work a whole bunch of hours, but my regular schedule is Monday through Thursday from 3 p.m. to 1 a.m., which is a swing shift schedule.
So you're still working a lot of overtime?
Yeah, a lot of overtime. We got mandatory overtime that you have to pick in order to kind of fill these vacancies. And on top of that, all the collaterals that I'm working. So it's a lot of overtime, but it's all right.
So how many police vacancies are there currently in Richmond?
I don't know the exact number. I know our numbers are going up. We did hire a few officers, and we have some that are in backgrounds in the academy, and some that are actually in training. I don't know the exact amount of vacancies.
Chief French reported last night you were 21 shy of what's authorized.
Okay.
No, that is the case.
21.
Any other questions? Well,
Did you have a question earlier? I saw your hand up a minute ago. Did you have a question at all, sir? Yes.
Oh, well, there's a vehicle parked on Whitmore and Joanne. It's a boat, there with a truck. It's not illegal, but the shell he has on it, you're out in the street where you can see what's coming. And several people almost had accidents there because it's down the hill. And then you got to pull out far enough to see what's coming the other way. By that time you're out in the street, it's the cap or shell on this truck that's really blocked.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a traffic hazard, kind of.
Yeah, but he's got a boat behind it, but it's not really the boat, it's the shell on this truck that you can't see around.
Okay. I'll definitely check that out, and if it is a traffic hazard, I'll address that issue for you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, what can be done when people are parking boats and cars on their lawns?
So it's that was kind of a tricky one. If it's private property, it's private property, we can't really touch it.
Code enforcement.
But code enforcement can definitely address it, especially if it's against our Richmond Municipal Code, and they can start giving fines.
I couldn't understand what you were saying because it's sort of.
It's private property, so sometimes when people park like cars that don't operate anymore, they just leave it on their driveway, and it looks like an eyesore when you drive by.
We're talking about boats.
Boats, yeah.
On the lawns and things,
Yeah, so.
not in their driveway.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what basically park enforcement, they deal with that. And if it's a violation of our Richmond Municipal Code, they can give fines out for that.
Any other questions? Well, I know you have to get back out there. Thank you for coming out.
Thank
And
you.
he's going to leave some cards over here at the table in case anybody's interested. You need to contact them. And your hours again?
3 p.m. to 1 in the morning.
All right, thank you.
All right, you guys have a good one.
So I did want to mention before our next speaker comes up that we do have resource guides up here, and it does have code enforcement for any issues like around a house or up on the lawn. If they're parking on the lawn, it's for code enforcement. Anything on the street is parking enforcement. So that being said, I want to thank the officer and hope he's safe out there. And we'll invite Michelle to come up here and speak.
Thank
She
you.
can answer some of the questions, previous questions as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. You can pull the mic out too.
Thank you all so much. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. I'm a church girl, I'm raised in church, so it's important that you can hear me. I'm Michelle Milam, Crime Prevention Manager for the Richmond Police Department. I'm very excited to be here today because I love Richmond, and this is also my home neighborhood. I live not too far from you, so I don't have to travel far to go home tonight. This is a great neighborhood, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about crime prevention and our crime prevention unit, what we do, the services that are available to neighbors and neighborhood councils that we can extend to you, and also a little bit about the work that we do with the unhoused community, because we do both. I have a couple of flyers that are going around so that you have them. I'll talk about them a little bit later on, but one is a neighborhood quick reference guide. It has information for who do you call? We get these a lot. When do you call 911? When do you call non-emergency? What is mental health crisis outreach and what do they do? How do I get in touch with them? What is CORE? How do I get in touch with them? Have information for SOS Richmond, our parking enforcement unit that you guys just talked about. The number for them is on there, and also illegal dumping. I also have a good handout also about home burglary and things that we can do to help protect our homes. And finally, I have a good one about protecting your vehicles, because we know that it only takes a second for somebody to smash your window and take the items that are in there, and so things you can do to help protect yourself. But I'll talk first a little bit about the Crime Prevention Unit. The Crime Prevention Unit and program is over, I think we're nearing 40 years old, and many of you may remember, Richmond had a serious case in the community when we dealt with police brutality with the Richmond Cowboys. And out of that, Richmond was a little bit ahead of its time. It really felt that there was a need to bridge the gap between the community and the police department and have us work together. And there were a series of programs that actually came out of that, and one of that was our crime prevention program. One of our founders is Miss Myrtle Braxton, who is really a legend in our community and has done a lot of work for many, many years helping to organize people, and she and Naomi Williams helped organize the first neighborhood watches throughout the city. And then over time, the city added staff to the program. We work on a lot of different community engagement efforts, but this is an effort that has been going on for many years, and so I'm proud to be a part of this tradition. I came on board with the crime prevention program, believe it or not, almost 16 years ago. I grew up here in the city of Richmond and went to school here, so I'm happy to serve in my community, in my hometown. What do we do with the crime prevention program? Well, our primary goal is really to work with neighbors and residents to, number one, educate everyone on how you can build better relationships with the police department and with the city to help keep your neighborhood safe. And it's developed with this idea in mind. You are going to, by far, see more things than even your beat officer is going to see that happen in the community. But it's important for people to know who are in neighborhoods, and I'm speaking to the choir here, with the neighborhood council, what kind of tools you have available to be able to make that connection. For example, did you all know that there's an email where you can send emails to all of your beat officers that work this area? Anybody do that? Anybody can tell me what that email is? You can cheat, it's okay. You got your hand up? You do that? So, for example, there are a lot of different tools that we can use to help educate our neighbors. And I'm sure because you're part of the neighborhood council, you always get the question, well, I am concerned about a car that's parked over there, or I'm concerned about that house, or I'm concerned about this going on, or I'm concerned about the fireworks, or I'm concerned about this. And you all as good neighbors probably do a lot to share that information with people. But what we want to do with crime prevention is empower the neighbors so that everybody has the same information so that everybody can be working together. So it's not just people who attend neighborhood council meetings, although we want everybody to attend, but it's also people in the neighborhood and the community who know. So for example, in the example I gave, there is an email that goes to all of your beat officers, whether they work day shift, swing shift, graveyard, doesn't really matter. It's P for police, D for department, beat, the word beat, you guys are at 8, at richmondpd.net. So that's pdbeat8 at richmondpd.net. And actually, I'm on that email too, so I see all the beat 8 requests. So I know when people are using that. email or when they're not. And if I see something that I can jump in on and I can help, that's helpful. It goes to the lieutenant and the sergeant and all those folks. Crime prevention, #1 rule that you want to know to, engage in crime prevention is get to know your neighbors and get to know your police department and your public safety folks. It's important for you to get to know your neighbors. How many people here have lived in your neighborhood for over 50 years? Anybody over 50 years? All right, so we got some folks who have seasoned here, right? Anybody lived in a neighborhood for under a year? Under a year, give them a round of applause. Under a year. The reason why both of you and both of these groups are important, well, actually there's 2 reasons. The first reason is it's important to have people who are seasoned who know about the neighborhood, because you have a lot of wisdom and knowledge about things that are going on, programs, how to connect with things. It's really important for you all as new neighbors to get involved and stay involved and engage in the safety of the neighborhood. And for all that wisdom that's going on in this room, so we have a lot of wisdom, as you can see, with those hands raised, to be shared with you so that you can share that with your neighbors. And so as new neighbors come into the neighborhood, everybody gets to know each other. One of the reasons why it's important for you to know your neighbor is it's hard to report things that are suspicious in the community if you don't actually know what that looks like in that community. I'll give you an example. I did a neighborhood watch training in a community once, and one person worked the day shift and one person worked the evening shift, and they never saw each other. And then one day, somebody happened to be home, and they called the police on their neighbor, right? Because they didn't ever see their neighbor, they didn't know their neighbor. Well, that could have actually been prevented if they got to know their neighbor. I've also had situations where there was one particular situation I'll never forget in North Richmond. 2 neighbors lived next door to each other for 10 years. One day, neighbor comes home and says, all my stuff has been stolen. And she goes and she knocks on her neighbor's door and she says, hey, what happened? She said, oh, I just saw your grandson out there. He was taking stuff out the garage for you. She says, I don't have a grandson. So just little things like getting to know your neighbors. Your neighbors are going to see if something is out of place or, unusual in the neighborhood before you do. So I suggest to everybody, one of the things that we do at crime prevention is try to get neighbors to get to know each other. The other thing we want to do is we want to educate you on how to be able to connect with the police department, how to connect with your beat officer. You should know how to be able to do that. If you have an issue and you've reported it, we always want you to report it to either 911 or report to the non-emergency line so that that information gets you a response. I see a lot of people putting stuff out on Nextdoor. And one thing I need to explain about Nextdoor, the police department cannot see what happens in the private Nextdoor community. So if all the neighbors are having a conversation on Nextdoor, the police department doesn't get invited to the party because we're not considered part of the neighborhood. I actually know some of the consultants from Nextdoor, and I asked them about that, and they said they did that deliberately. So we don't know what goes on. But you all know, and it's important to call, because a call is going to get a response. A post on Nextdoor does not get a response, and usually it's after the fact. But if you're connected and you're educated and you're working with your police department, whether you're involved in a neighborhood watch or you want to know more things about the city of Richmond, then here's what you can do. You can see that post about, hey, this happened on this block at such and such a time. Oh, I understand that. You know what? That's a code enforcement issue. Let me give you the number to code enforcement so we can get code enforcement involved. That's the way the education works of getting your neighbors engaged and informed about what happens in your neighborhood happens. And we do that through crime prevention in a couple ways. We do neighborhood watch. So I don't know if anybody's been a part of a neighborhood watch or you're currently a part of one or you may be interested in doing neighborhood watch, but we do that. We can come and we can train you. We can come to your house and do it. We can do it online. We can do it at a church. And we can give you like a full presentation of how you set up your neighborhood watch. The other ways that we get engaged with people is we do business watch. So we just got through walking the 23rd Street Merchants Corridor. We walked Point Richmond. We're going to do some walking up here. We're going to probably do some walking on Lower Mac with the chief. And we work with businesses also to engage them and educate them on how to work with us and how to improve their relationships with us. We also work with schools. We do all kinds of presentations. So if you ever need a presentation from crime prevention, we do it. We're a small but mighty unit. So right now we used to have 2.5 people. Now we finally have 2. It was after the pandemic, just me for a while. We have our longtime crime prevention specialist who was wonderful, and from this community, Mandy Swerzing, who moved on. And so Anna Duran is our newest crime prevention specialist, and she also lives in the community, and she's with our unit too. So we're here to help serve you if you have a question about how you can connect with the police department. Even if it's something like, hey, I want to get the street shut down because we want to do a block party. Feel free to direct that to us, and we're happy to work with you with the proper city organization to be able to help you with your issue. So those are some of the things that we do. We do a lot of education and training about how to protect yourself. One of the things that we do, and I'll go over this now, is you probably have heard of the latest kind of spate of smash and grab robberies. So yes, homicide has gone down, which is great, but we still have shootings and we still have robberies, and our robbery rate has increased a little bit. So what we want to do is we want to try to get that down as well, right? So one of the things that's important to remember is that people right now after the pandemic, there's still a group of people who really just don't have a lot of money, and they're looking for ways, a quick way to make money. And there's a couple ways you can make money pretty quickly with cars. One is, you can probably guess it. What do you think one is? Catalytic converter. That's right. Catalytic converters have what inside of it? Cheat sheet, platinum. Platinum. Did you know that there was platinum inside your catalytic converter? Okay, so yeah, platinum like you would wear with your rings, that's inside your catalytic converter. So would you walk around with your platinum rings in certain places? You probably wouldn't. But everybody knows that there's platinum in catalytic converters. Who can name me the most commonly targeted vehicle for catalytic converter theft?
Prius.
Prius. Yes, Prius is the #1. So if you're a Prius owner, you might want to consider getting a cage or getting some kind of an anti-theft device put on your catalytic converter. Because I'm sure, anybody here ever had their catalytic converter stolen? When you try to start it up, one of the ways you'll know is you'll hear a loud rumbling noise, like it doesn't really want to turn over, but it's really rumbling, and you'll know that somebody has done it. It only takes a few minutes for somebody who's seasoned at doing this to kind of take your catalytic converter, so that's one thing to be aware of. Another thing that's important to be aware of is the smash and grabs when you're going to ATMs. Now we know we have a lot of banks up here that are around here, and some people still go to ATMs. I can admit I'm not one of them. I like to use my mobile banking, and I'll use Cash App. I'll use any kind of other device where I don't have to carry cash. But if you have to go into banking, we're not saying don't go do it. Be aware, because what's happening and the way these thieves are operating is they're going and they're waiting for you after you withdraw cash from the ATM to go back to your car, and they're watching and they're following people, and they're actually crashing the window. And they're doing it with people inside. So that is something to be aware of as well. So I had a couple of tips that I've left for you, other things that you can do, making sure you take all your things out your car, that you lock up your car, and we will come and we will work with you on sharing these tips with your neighbors so that you can make sure that you do safety and prevention. The other thing crime prevention does is we work with the unhoused community. And, I'll open up for questions in just a bit, but I'll just explain to you just how we work with the unhoused community. A couple years ago, we were assigned to work with the core team. So I manage the core team for the whole city. So they work through the county, but I have the city's contract for core. We have a Richmond San Pablo team that we split the cost with Richmond and San Pablo. And we also have a core team that's dedicated for Richmond and some of our Richmond programs. And what's changed in terms of the way we deal with homelessness? I heard a lot of you talk about RVs. Maybe people are living in RVs. I hear a lot of conversation when I go to neighborhood councils about, oh, there's an encampment over there, Michelle. So what's changed? Well, years ago, if there was an encampment, who did you call? You called the police, right? Now, there is a case law. It's called Martin versus Boise. We also have City of Johnson versus Grants Pass. And those particular case laws, particularly Martin versus Boise, actually has to deal with the fact that, the city that Boise got actually sued because they went to go break up an encampment, and they gave everybody a flyer and said, here, go to the local homeless shelter over here. We're going to clean up this encampment because there's a lot of trash here and concern and debris. So those individuals went to the encampment, and from the encampment to the shelter. And what they found when they got to the shelter is that the shelter was full. And so this went to the Ninth Circuit, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court affirmed it and said, you cannot dismantle an encampment without offering people who want an available shelter bed from going. So what does that mean for us? It means when you call about your encampment, whether it's a vehicle encampment or tents, it doesn't really make a difference, and it's on public property, we have to have CORE go out and offer those services to those individuals first. And so usually that goes through me and my unit to try to make sure that CORE has gone out. Sometimes it goes through 211 or Public Works, but we try to keep a running list of all the different encampments throughout the city to offer the services. The individuals can do two things. They can accept the services and say, yes, I want a bed, or they can say, no, I don't, and then we go about our way of being able to mitigate for health and safety. Now, if they say, hey, I want a bed, but there's no bed available, then that's where we have a problem, because we need an available bed. The city has a variety of different programs that they've established through grants and other things to be able to offer people other opportunities, because we know the county shelters are still 105% capacity. That means all the beds are full, and they've added additional beds at the warming center, and those are full too. They're 105% capacity. So it's tough right now, but we are working through it. We are trying to get through encampments. I know that there's a big one on Parkway that we're working on. I know that Giant Road has been an issue. I know you have encampments coming here or there. If you have encampments that you want us to help you reach out to, we'd be happy to do that. We are advocating at a city level to try to invest more into permanent supportive housing, because the reality is some people are not going to be able to live without that support that they need to stay housed. The rents in the Bay Area are ridiculous, you know, and so it's hard for people to maintain even renting rooms. And sometimes people need that extra support to be able to maintain themselves. So we work with them. The big thing for you to know is tools for neighborhood council. You see an encampment, let us know. You can always email me. My information is actually on the neighborhood quick restaurants, you know, and you can shoot me an email. It's Milam under CORE Unhoused Outreach. And you can say, hey, Michelle, there's this encampment. This is where it's located. And I'll make sure that we work with CORE to try to get there to respond. We'll coordinate with parking enforcement, abatement, and other things. It may take some time. Just know we're trying to move as fast as we can with the staff we have. So those are just some of the things that we do with crime prevention. We are here for you. We're here to be a service for the community. It's very important to me that you know that you can reach out to us about things and concerns that you have. And if you're interested in Neighborhood Watch, if you're interested in Business Watch, we have a ton of programs. I didn't even touch all of them. If you're interested in, you know, you live in an apartment community, we have multi-housing safety groups, or we work with apartment communities, like, so we work with everybody from Bella Vista to Heritage to, you know, all the apartment communities. We're here to be a service to you and to the community, and to be a bridge between the community and the police department. I work with police officers every day. The greatest joy I have is when police officers get excited about working with a neighborhood, because that's when you see the two things coming together and the synergy. And you all say, hey, we want to work on this. And they're like, yeah, we want to work on this. And they take it on as a B project, and they really get excited about what they do. And that makes me feel like we're giving back to the community that's given back so much to us. So I'll stop it there, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
You gave an email address, and then you said we could cheat. Like, is it on here somewhere?
Yes, it is. So if you look under the orange tab, it says Core Team 211 at the bottom, Encampment Service Enforcement in Milam at richmondpd.net. It is there. What I'll do is I can send it to, I can also send it to Arto so that he can send it out to you all, so that you all have it. But for those who don't have my email, I will repeat it. It is M like Michelle, another M like Michelle, ILAM like Michelle again, at richmondpd.net. Yes, and if you send that to me, I'll be happy to take a look at the encampment.
Okay, but I have a comment too, you know, just to help us out. This is nice, and I appreciate the information. Okay.
You need a bigger version, don't you?
That's too
Yes, I totally understand. We tried to fit a lot of things on one card, so definitely point taken. I appreciate it. And if you need a bigger version, I actually do have a bigger version. I just brought the smaller ones today for ease, but I'll make sure you get the bigger version. Yes, ma'am.
Speaking of homeless, I understand that it's an increasing problem people's houses while you're out on vacation or whatever. And I'm wondering, I think what some people do is they'll give a letter to the police department saying, I'm going to be gone from this address for this period of time, so that the police department knows that when you call them about potential squatters, they're not going to take a fake lease as at face value.
Right.
Can we do that here? And who do we give such notices to?
So the question was about folks who, are squatting kind of in a house and, trying to determine, whether somebody legally belongs there or not. And the answer, it's a little bit complicated. So, we've had these situations come up where, on both sides, where somebody just kind of illegally moves into a unit and say, hey, I live here. And then the landlord has to deal with that. And so on that side, some of it is civil, for if they've been there for a while, to be able to verify and prove their address. And so what we would want you to do is contact us so that we could work with you and see what information we could gather specifically for that case. We've also had the inverse where people have been rented property and say, hey, rent from me, and they sign a lease. And the landlord said, I never leased to you. And so the property was vacant, somebody broke in, usually the landlord is far away, and they lease to that person, and then that person is there, and then the question is, what civil penalties can be enacted in that case? In a lot of these cases, some of this is, going to be a civil matter, but it could be criminal trespassing if somebody is breaking into a building and they're squatting inside, and you can prove it. It's harder if they get something like a electricity bill or utility bill in their name and they're showing that, hey, I have a reason to be here. It takes a little bit more for us to try to figure those cases out, and so we do work together. So if you do have a concern about that, please contact us and we can go out there and try to do an assessment and just kind of figure out what's going on.
Okay, so if we're leaving home, how do we preemptively prevent that by notifying the police?
Yeah, if you're leaving home, one thing you can do is that email address that I gave to you all, the PDB8. And remember, I'm on there too, so if you need to reach me, you can put it on there too. You could email your beat officers and ask for something called Vacation Watch. And, we're not going to promise that we're going to park a car out in front of your house, but we will drive by and kind of be aware of what's going on. I would also suggest that you make sure your neighbors are notified. And if you have a camera system or something that alerts you while you're gone, that's great too, because a lot of the, doorbell cameras and other things will actually alert you while you're away from home of who's coming in your property, and they'll send you notifications. So all three of those things could be helpful. If you don't have cameras or anything fancy, having a neighbor watch out for your house and check on it is still a good way of doing it. And then you can alert the police department about Vacation Watch, and they're happy to come and, help you out. Yes?
So Michelle had helped me with a case where there was some elder abuse. And so I was going to ask you if you could tell the folks here, the audience, how we can contact you or RPD in case we suspect elder abuse.
Yeah, so elder abuse, if you suspect that it's ongoing and it's right now, you can actually contact dispatch. I would encourage you all to pre-program the dispatch number into your hand. If it's an emergency, obviously 911. If it's a non-emergency, make sure you enter that non-emergency number into your cell phone. If you don't know how to do it, ask a kid. They'll be happy to help you put it in there. And you want to have that in there for a couple of reasons. If something's happening right now and you suspect it, you can always call an officer out to do a welfare check and just say, hey, I want a welfare check of what's happening with the house on the end of Birmingham or whatever it is. Can you please check to see if this person is okay? We haven't seen them in a couple of days. We all know those stories of the neighbor who, wasn't seen for a couple of days, and then we find out that they're deceased or something happened to them. So you can always call and ask for a welfare check. The other thing that you could do is, if you suspect elder abuse and it's some other individual who's abusing the elder and it's kind of like, kind of under the radar, so they're not really making it clear what they're doing, you can call us. We can also get the Family Justice Center involved to try to deal with that. But I think the first step is for us to try to get into the house and get eyes on what's going on. There's also, we have an elder abuse service through the county, so we can also connect with them through the Family Justice Center if we think that there's something going on with this case. We have a family violence unit that we have stationed at the Family Justice Center, and they take on these cases. So, you know, a lot of times patrol may come, they may do the welfare check, and then they may say, okay, I made it into the house, I couldn't really tell what's going on, let me see if I can get the Family Justice Center and the detectives involved. So I think the first step is just making sure you do that welfare check. Yes?
Now, you don't deal with streetlights or graffiti, do you?
I can help you with, you know, some of those things. So basically, street lights, as we know, is either Public Works or PG&E. So if there is a street light out, you know, and somebody contacts me from a neighborhood group, I'm always happy to help refer that to Public Works. I think the number is 510-233-3011. Don't quote me on it, but you know, it's after 5. I think my brain might still be working if you need to report a street light that's out. The other thing that we could do for graffiti, obviously graffiti is a crime. You know, you can report that to the non-emergency number. If you have any pictures or camera footage, that's always helpful, so that we have that available as well. But you know, Public Works, you can report it to them and they'll come and try to clean it up if it's on public property. If it's on private property, like, you know, there's a business that just really is not taking care of itself, that's going to be a code enforcement issue. And so we can call code enforcement to come in and basically encourage the business owner to take control of what's happening on their properties. Yes?
I know what's going on, but maybe you could tell the folks here about street sweeping and ticketing.
So, from my understanding, street sweeping and ticketing is coming back to a neighborhood near you. It was paused during the pandemic for a long time, and I think one of the greatest complaints that I got over pandemic time, you know, when we were all dealing with that, is when is the city going to reinstate street sweeping? So it is coming back. Our parking enforcement unit will be working, you know, with other. We also have a contracted vendor to try to get to the streets. I think one of the things we're also doing is taking a look at the signage to make sure that the signage is correct, because if you guys look at our signage around the city, I'm a very transparent person, and I know I'm being recorded on this, so sometimes it gets me into trouble, but we have to fix our signs because it's hard to be able to ticket people if the signs aren't correct. So we're doing some of that stuff and that work in-house, and my understanding is it's going to get reinstated soon, and they're building up the staff and the capacity to be able to do that.
Will the ticketing follow the sweepers rather than,
yes, that is my understanding, is that that's how it's going to end up working. I think, again, they're working on some of the contracting processes. You know, is that all going to be parking enforcement? You know, I know in the past we've also used, you know, an additional contract service to help us to move faster, because we have a great parking enforcement team. They're small but mighty, 6 for the entire city, which is, in my opinion, not enough. But, you know, we want to make sure that we work with our team to make sure that there's enough resources to be able to do that. Yes?
My neighbor cut down his parking enforcement, or his street sweeping sign in front of his house. And I think he kind of like hid it away. Is that something where they're just going to find out eventually and like it'll be taken care of, or do we as neighbors?
You can report that, and if the sign is missing or, you know, something like that, we can report that to Public Works so that they can restore the sign. You know, just let us know so that we can, you know, try to follow up on that and get the sign restored. That's pretty creative.
Love it.
Yes.
Does the city take care of any of the overgrown trees in our neighborhoods?
Yes, so
I live right over here above the college. I used to have a view. And I have been trying to see who I can find to cut trees, and it's in the thousands of dollars to cut those trees down. Is there any way we can work together and get these trees down? Because the cats, I have cats, turkeys, squirrels, and what are those big things? Raccoons.
we have Old McDonald's Farm, right?
And, you know, we got too much growing, and plus I can't see the water anymore, and I can't see the trains running anymore. And I've been in my house 54 years, and I pay my taxes, and I was wondering, is there anything we can do to get those trees eliminated behind it? Right above the college back parking
if it's city property, then I think we probably need to make the request to the city and to, you know, whatever entity in the city is responsible for that under Public Works. It could be Parks District, it could be, or it could be, you know, it could be Public Works. But yeah, I can bring that up and just kind of find out who's responsible, if it's city side.
Lives in the neighborhood, but I would enjoy having that view back. And I think some of the wild animals would find another area to, you know, manifest their habitat.
I 100% agree. Since I live in this neighborhood, I live in a woody area. The first night I came home, I saw a raccoon eating my DoorDash on the porch and enjoying itself. So yes, I do understand, you know, especially because of those trees, that's what happened. So three raccoons, and Richmond raccoons aren't small, they're big. So I'm happy to report that and try to see what we can do. We can find out whose property line it's on, because that would make the determination, and then try to get it on the list to look at, because it's also a fire hazard thing. So you want to make sure that they're taken care of.
Where I am, there's a tree right over my, I have a little short back fence. And if, you know, an earthquake, that tree would come right into my home.
Absolutely.
And then people on the corner, they let their tree get out of hand. It's right on the corner of, I don't even know the name of the street, I'm on Oxford. But anyway, it's up by the telephone wires. And
Oh, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
And they won't keep it, when I first moved here, there was people that lived there, the gentleman, he used to keep it cut right to the top of the house. But now it's all up in the air, you know. We need to, you know, keep our trees trimmed and neat and be safe around the growth, you know.
Duly noted, duly noted. Well, what I'll do is I'll take this back, even though it's not the police department, we're happy to be like the nexus and get that conversation going so that we can kind of do an assessment. Because I do know with the rains, a lot of the trees over here, the root system is kind of bad, and I've seen some that look like they're getting ready to fall. So those are things that we should report.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad I came tonight.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're welcome. Any last questions before we let her go? No?
No, we can let it go.
Yes, ma'am.
But I just wanted to make a request. I just finished passing my notary test, so I was saying if there was someone that has low income or whatever and wanted notary, I'll do it for free.
Well, you're a notary public.
Yes.
Okay. Where do you live?
2642 Hilltop.
Okay.
I mean, well,
Hilltop.
yeah, Warriors Road.
Warriors?
Yeah. we have a
Warriors is a good street. Well, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be not only with the city of Richmond, but to be your neighbor. And you know where to find me. You'll see me around.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. So again, for all of you guys, in September, we'll be having our dumpster day on Groom. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but we have the city come in with a bunch of dumpsters and everybody gets to dump for free. You'll get postcards for that. And then there are, as Michelle was alluding, there are some cameras that are being installed in the city of Richmond for dumping and license plate readers. So those are going to come in really handy. So speaking of Groom, there was an elementary school on Groom called Harmon Knowles, and it's been deemed as surplus property. The West Contra Unified School District has formed a committee. Well, they formed it like a year or 2 years ago, and this is the second iteration of that committee. And what they do is they look at the surplus property and figure out what they can do with it, if they could sell it or barter or exchange it, whatever. But I've asked Don Gosney, because he was here with the 7-Eleven committee for quite some time, to come in and maybe briefly talk about what's going to happen or potentially happen with the property on the room right next to the park. So Don, if you want to.
It's going to take good 8 to 10 minutes for the presentation.
No.
No, that's what I'm telling you.
Well, it's not going to work if you're, it's not going to work if you're sitting there.
Yeah, we
Come
can't
on up.
hear it. I'm interested because I live right there.
Okay,
Don, come on up.
you're supposed to be out of here in 6 minutes, and I'm telling you, I can't do it in that much time. So I didn't want to waste anybody's time, and I didn't want to be shut down.
We don't have a set time to leave, but I appreciate it.
Microphone back to Sam for me, please. Thank you. Depending on the fluctuations in the number of school-aged children a community has, they either build new schools or close schools that are no longer needed. There are sometimes outside factors that determine whether a school can remain open and functional as a school. If a school is deemed no longer needed or available for educational purposes, it is deemed by the elected Board of Trustees to be surplus. West County has 4 sites that are under consideration to be declared surplus. I'll give you a very brief rundown about each of those sites, but we'll focus on the one school right here in your own backyard, Harmon Knolls. On Mosier Lane in El Cerrito, the former Portola Middle School was deemed to be no longer fit as a school because since the dawn of time, Mosier Lane has been sliding downhill. For some reason, housing children in a school that is sliding downhill is deemed to be a bad thing. The school was demolished a dozen years back and a replacement was built a few blocks away on a site that once hosted Castro Elementary. The new school's name is called Fred Korematsu. Over at Terra Hills, we had Seaview Elementary. It's pretty much a triangular-shaped site with railroad tracks on 2 sides and a swamp on the 3rd. Because of its proximity to the rail lines, it was closed and demolished about 15 years ago. In East Richmond sits the former Adams Middle School, which happens to sit right on top of the Hayward Fault, one of the most dangerous fault lines in Northern California. For obvious reasons, Adams was closed. The buildings are vacant, but still exist. And then there's Harmon Knolls, which was closed and shuttered earlier this century. The buildings were demolished long ago. Harmon Knolls sits right next to a park off of Groom, but about 2/3 of the park is actually owned by the school district. When you have surplus property, the law says that a 7-Eleven committee must be formed. It has nothing to do with Slurpees or Super Big Gulps. I wish it did, but the committee must have a minimum of 7 and no more than 11 members. Arto and I both serve on that committee. I've been on there for a little over 2 years. Arto started, his first meeting was earlier this month. Without going into the detail, members must meet specific criteria to serve. We are an advisory body only. That is, we make absolutely 0 decisions except to tell the public what to tell the public and the elected school board. There will be public hearings once the board decides to consider future reuse options of the sites. The first question that has to be considered is whether these 4 sites have an educational reuse option. Of the 4 sites, Harmon Knolls is the only site where a school can be built and operated. If it is deemed that it is no longer useful for educational purposes, the board would then vote to declare it surplus. This is actually a legal definition. Then they would consider possible reuse options. Before we get into what happens after it's declared surplus, let's touch on its value and the possibility of reuse as an educational facility. First off, traditional schools are required to follow what's called the Field Act, when designing their facility. For what should be obvious reasons, these facilities need to be built following strict building codes put in place specifically for schools. On the other hand, charter schools are often constructed as office buildings and then partitioned off so that the rooms can be used as classrooms. Aspire and Summit, right across the street from Walmart, were designed and built in that manner. If the schools eventually fold, the buildings can be easily converted back into office space. By the way, office buildings are a lot cheaper to build than schools. The same cannot be said about the traditional schools, though. As for whether it's a possibility that the board will build you a new school on that site, here's where Arto and I have a difference of opinion. Keep in mind, please, that need has nothing to do with this decision. The same goes for the condition of the existing school in this area, Highland. This is outside of the purview of the 7-Eleven committee. The board will consider that, but our committee cannot. One thing that is for sure and for certain is that you can't build a new school without money, and that's where we run into some problems, even in my house. A dozen years ago, we were building elementary schools for $30 million. The new Lake Elementary School is budgeted at $66 million. It is very likely that a new Harmon Knolls will cost more than $100 million. And just so you know, this is an area of expertise that I have. I've been with the bond program since 1998, have attended the bond oversight committee meetings every month for more than 20 years, served on the bond oversight committee for more than 10, all that the law would allow, and chaired it for 3 years. The truth is that there is such a universal distrust of the district and the Board of Education, no matter who is serving on it, that it would be unlikely for the people of West County to pass another bond measure in the foreseeable future. Plus, why would the good people of Hercules, Pinole, El Cerrito, Kensington, or the other 7 unincorporated areas of West County vote to tax themselves for another 40 years when they wouldn't see a single penny of that money in their communities? Gotta be realistic. Plus, state law does not allow a school district to have an indebtedness that exceeds 2.5% of the total valuation of all of the properties in West County. That's residential, commercial, and even churches. we would need to pay back another $100+ million before we can put another measure on the ballot or sell more bonds. My experience suggests that it may be 12 to 15 years at the earliest before the district can attempt this, and even then, it's not likely that it would muster the 55% of the votes required for passage. It's even more, let's move on to alternative reuses though. There are a lot of ideas ranging from soccer fields, dog parks, regular parks, apartment buildings, single-family houses, charter schools, workforce housing, and a host of other options for Harmon Knowles. Arto and I both would like to hear from you about what you think would go there. That's really important, get community input. As we want to be able to pass that on to the 7-Eleven committee, pass it on to the school board, pass it on to the rest of the public. The law requires that other government agencies and nonprofits need to be offered first crack at purchasing the property at fair market value. If no one wants it, the law also says it has to be offered up as a source of revenue for the district. Has to be offered up as a source of revenue. By the way, the money can only be used for capital projects. No money for salaries, benefits, or supplies. Almost done. Most of the park options would actually cost the district money and would bring virtually no revenue into the district. One of the most controversial options, aside from a new school, is what's called workforce housing. What this is would be for the district to build affordable and low-cost housing to be offered only to district employees. Sounds great. The real estate consultants hired by the district tell us that no district in the state has been successful with this. On the other hand, Trustee O3 Christian and County Trustee Consuelo Lara are telling me that they know of many districts where it's been highly successful. I've asked them both to provide me with more information where I can verify those successes. And I'll throw that back at the real estate people and say, what do you say about this? One of the problems with this idea is the fact that this site is in the city of Richmond, and we have rent control laws that can make it prohibitively expensive. For instance, what happens when a teacher retires or goes to work outside of the WCCUSD? With the current rent control regulations, it can take more than 2 years and more than $28,000 to relocate them. This is money out of the classrooms. Okay? How many teachers would that pay for? This would also apply if there's a death or divorce and the spouse doesn't want to move. Other options under consideration include whether directly selling the property or trading it for property somewhere else that has an existing revenue-generating business already sitting on it. The example they love to toss around is a site where there's a Home Depot on the property, bringing in more than $1 million per year to the school district. Whether it's sold or traded, though, whatever is built there would be outside of the district's control, and you would have to lobby the Richmond City Council, just as you've been doing for the Hilltop Mall repurposing. I'm sure that I've taken longer than Arto wanted, and want to open things up for questions, comments, and Arto's rebuttal. As if you have, he wants that school built. Okay, if you have suggestions, please let us know so we can share them with the 7-Eleven committee and the Board of Education. Thank you. Do we have any questions, any comments, any suggestions on what you would like to see there?
This is Highland Elementary?
No, we're talking Harmon Knowles. It's a vacant lot right now, with a big fence around it and a fallen down tree.
I've walked past property, I didn't get them now.
Okay, anybody have any questions or suggestions? Yes, ma'am.
Soccer field.
You want soccer fields?
Soccer, maybe extending the park, maybe the city bought the property to extend the existing park.
Okay, you're talking about, whether it's turned into a soccer field or a regular park or a dog park, you're talking about selling it to the city. Because the city would then get a choice. As the new owner, they would get a choice on what to do with it. But your suggestion is sell it to the city, essentially. Okay. Well, how would the city put soccer fields on there if they don't own it? Oh.
I don't have that expertise. I'm just saying what I would like to see there.
Okay.
Soccer field, or if the park could be extended, or definitely no, what is called strip malls. No strip malls.
No strip mall.
Definitely no strip malls.
No stripping or no strip mall?
No school. No school, because if the school is built there, then that means parents are going to be coming and picking up their children, and then there's going to be an impact of traffic.
Okay.
Too many cars.
All right. You had your hand up?
Yeah. So a lot of young folks, like we look into the property, right? And we know if we give it to the city, they're obviously going to just as a park, because a lot of people have been lobbying to the city saying, oh, we want more parks for like soccer teams and soccer youth leagues to practice. And I would say for that property, maybe cut it in half, keep one side of it as a park, like grassy plain, so people had like have their dogs playing and stuff, and maybe have like a little small business, like a store right there for people and stuff. So there's not a commercial like market.
Let me feel this one.
Let me touch real quick. Nobody is talking about giving the property to anybody, whether it's a city or any other business. They would have to pay fair market value.
Yeah.
Okay? So I mean, the city couldn't turn it into a park without giving the school district a truckload of cash first.
Hey, so first of all, that park is owned by the school district. It's leased by the city of Richmond. So it's not city-owned, that park.
Speak up and say it again.
I said that park is leased from the school district. It's not owned by the city of Richmond. That's actually school district property, that park.
That park?
Yeah. And then-
Two-thirds of it is owned by the school district. Of
They
the,
don't keep that, where that school was located before they tore it down. That's school district's property, am I
Correct.
yes. But the park that's right next to it,
Part of that is,
two-thirds of that park belongs to the school district too. So you've got not that big of a strip that belongs to the city as a park, but they're leasing it and using it as a park. Okay?
So if you
they
guys,
don't keep it up.
Yeah.
After they tore it down, we've called, they don't keep it up.
right,
And they're using it to store, not storage,
No.
mulch and everything else.
yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've talked to some neighbors there a few months ago when I was doing some surveying of it. Now, on the park that is there right now, the right-hand side is significantly higher than the left-hand side.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about soccer, not much, but you can't do it on a big slope. You're going to be leveling it out, which would cost many hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. There's no parking to speak of out there. But the young gentlemen that were around there said they don't want soccer, they want basketball courts. And I'll pass that along to the city as well. So she had her hand up here first.
Okay, I don't remember the reason you said that the school was demolished. And additionally, you said housing for district employees. And what was the reason behind that failing in previous, you were saying other cities have tried that and it hasn't worked?
Okay, as far as the existing school that was there, the other ones I know exactly why they were torn down. This one I don't know why. Maybe Arto knows, but I don't know why it was torn down. But it has been torn down. It's just a vacant lot right now. As far as workforce housing goes, first off, the district would have to invest tens, if not $100 million in building the housing there. Where are they going to get that money? Okay, but then it's the whole idea. The school district is in the education business. They're not in the real estate management business. They would have to create an entire new department just to manage the housing that they would put there. Okay, and wherever that cost would not be passed on to the taxpayers here. Whoever was residing at those apartments or houses would have to add that onto the rent. One of the bigger problems on there, because of the rent control laws in the city of Richmond, they make it extremely difficult to evict somebody if they don't pay the rent, or let's say that they no longer work for the school district. They retire, or they go to work in Berkeley or something like that. How do you get them to move? They say it can take more than 2 years and up to $28,000 to get them to move, according to the rent control laws in Richmond. That is a problem.
Just go there for a job and then after, just to get residents and then move on someplace else and then you can't get them out.
But the consultants say that they have not seen a school district that has done this successfully. But Trustee O3 Christian and County Trustee Consuelo Lara, they say they've talked to a lot of school districts. Okay? We need to reconcile that. Get the information from those two and have the real estate people tell us, what do you know about this? Because we're being told two different stories here. We need to get the answers on that. And the school board, Our purpose on the 7-11 committee is to gather information, provide it to the elected school board members. Those 5 people are the only ones that can make decisions. We don't make decisions. All we do is decide what information to give them. But then you've also got we want to make sure that the public is aware, because you will have public hearings about this, and that's where we expect you to show up, whether it's in person or on Zoom or whatever you have to do. You know, get your blimp or something out there, but let them know what you think, because they're acting on your behalf, on our behalf. But we want to make sure that whatever decisions they make, they're making informed decisions. Yeah, sorry, one last thing here. I said on the workforce housing, dealing with former teachers on the school board and on the county board of education, they're just obsessed so much with taking care of teachers that they've got blinders on and they're not looking at the big picture and all the details. It's their choice to make that decision. But I don't want to make a decision on our behalf that we get to pay for decades to come. Some of us are going to be paying for it for the rest of our lives. I'm old like you, I just don't look as old. All right, okay. No comment on that, but anyway, you make sure they make an informed decision before, since they're speaking for us. So we have one more hand up over here? We didn't. Good.
I want to know, as you're the advocate for the school, what is the necessity for a school, or why are you advocating for a school?
Why am I advocating?
Yes.
Get on the camera.
I'm advocating for the school because Highland was on the list to be rebuilt, and it's in terrible shape.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be, Harmon Knolls was supposed to be the site where the new Highland Elementary was going to be built. They were going to keep the kids in school while they're building a brand new school here on Groom. But a couple of the trustees, they put Richmond High and Kennedy High in front of the elementary schools, even though there's asbestos and everything else, and poor water and everything else, leaky roofs. So that's why I'm advocating for it, because we need a new school for Fairmeade and Highland. It's in terrible shape.
Yeah.
So I want to thank Don Gosney here.
He had one more question?
Yeah, I went to Highland Elementary and actually recently visited. All I see a difference is they just paint walls, and the inside, the bathrooms are all the same. And
What more do you want?
Huh?
What more do you want? You get a fresh paint job.
Wait, but let me tell you something. I went to Fairmeade in the 60s, and it's exactly the same as Highland. And Highland was Fairmeade, or Fairmeade was Highland.
Well, what's wrong with them,
Why can't they renovate?
how come they can't, tear down and rebuild?
There's no money.
There's no money. It's gone.
So it's no money there, but it would be money someplace else.
Yes. Okay, can I touch on that real quick?
Yeah, real quick, please.
Real quick, yes. All right. Just so you know, we have what's called a facilities master plan. It came out in 2015. It ranked each one of the schools based on the actual status of the school. Not on the education, but on the buildings themselves. All right? A couple of years ago, number 1 on the list to be rebuilt was Lake Elementary School, which is nearly done. Then Stige, the oldest school in our school district at 82 years old, with exposed black mold, exposed asbestos, lead-based paint, and 99-point-something% students of color. Okay? Down at number 8 was Richmond High School. Number 14 was Kennedy High School. Then the president of the school board took it upon himself to bump the schools at the top of the list and move Richmond High up to the top at number 1, and Kennedy High School is number 2. Is it purely coincidental that where was Richmond High located? In his electoral district. Where was Kennedy High School located? In his wingman's district. No politics involved, right? But the bottom line is, even though just for Kennedy High School and Richmond High School, the budget that they had in June 2nd of last year called for $923 million to rebuild those schools. That's on top of the $96 million we've already spent. Now, we only had $565 million, so they readjusted it. They came up with $280 million budget for Kennedy, $280 million for Richmond, and they're looking under the sofa cushions to find spare change for Stige.
Well, thank you, Don. Let's get a round of applause for thank you for your presentation. Before we close, I just wanted to let you guys know that Easter's coming up. Happy Easter to everybody. And then For those of you that are looking for updates, Signature and Prologis, they'll be meeting with the city in May to discuss the possible building of Hilltop Mall. They're looking at 15 structures per acre in density. So they had to come to a compromise. The city wanted 30, Signature wanted 8, and they came to a compromise of 15. So there's going to be, if it's passed, there'll be a lot of building up there and a lot of new homes. And I think they're going to start at 900,000, maybe $1 million. So save your money if you want to live up here in Hilltop Mall.
So you're saying that's the latest that they're supposed to be doing with the property?
Yes. Yes.
So they're gonna tear the mall down?
Yeah, the mall will be completely leveled. They want to put a new facade on Walmart, maybe move Walmart out a little bit. But I'll bring more information to our next meeting. And I just want you guys to know, yes.
Is it going to be mixed use or just housing?
Mixed use.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be mixed use. So I'll bring some more information at our next meeting, and I want to thank you all for coming.
Did you want me to do the report real quickly?
Do you want to do the
Yes,
report?
quick.
Please.
Okay.
That's not finalized that they're going to be building.
Email me.
It has to be approved by the city council.
Because we've been going over this.
Be happy to listen to anything you have to say.
Yeah.
Ever since I've lived here more than 40 years ago.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is gonna be quick. This is the
Use the microphone.
financial report from last year. In other words, what we spent, what we took in, etc. Okay, so as of December the 31st of 2022, our balance was $6,520.15. Okay, and the collection that we made for 2023 for dues was $450. And then when we do our cleanup, we ask for donation, and that came to $522. So the total intake is $972. So that leaves our balance is $7,492.15. The only expense we had last year is renewing our U.S. Post Office box for 12 months, and that was $216. And the total now is $7,276.15. And then what I also do is compare our renewal. Like when you give me a check or money, you put either you new or renewal. In 2023, we had 37 people that renewed their dues. In 2022, there was 51. And then 2021, it was 40. Now, the new members of last year for 2023, we had 3, 2022, 2, and 2021, 1. And that's the wrap up real quick. Now, you wanted to say something.
Thank you, Dolores.
Okay.
Before I let you go, you guys, if you can, start watching the city council meetings. I'm the chair of the RNCC. Feel free to watch the RNCC meetings. You can find a lot of this information on our Facebook page, which is the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Facebook page. We have a YouTube channel with some of our meetings on there. So that being said, I would like to get, my phone number is on the top of the newsletters for anybody if you want to call me and talk to me about something. But we need to start spending some of this money on projects around our community. And so with that, I will close the meeting, and I want to thank everybody for coming. Take care and be safe out there.
She wanted to say something real quick.
Yeah, basically,
Okay, real quick.
We don't normally do that. But
Oh, I'm sorry.
Get it.
Learn to be bell way.
We got to get out of here.
No,
Okay, real quick.
my name is Lucretia Dunn. I'm a notary public, and I'm saying for anyone that's low income, I'll be there notary for free. So my phone number is 510-691-4737. Email lucretiad@gmail.com. That's LUECREAS iad@gmail.com.
So you're gonna bring some, next time you're gonna bring some
gonna bring some.
flyers, so you don't have to worry.
All right, thanks again, everybody. Thank you, take care.